So I think the iPhone 17 is great, but I doubt that's the first time you've heard that here on Tech YouTube. This phone is pretty universally loved, but I wanted to share my experience as someone who just finished reviewing the iPhone Air and the 17 Pro, and just what I value as a reviewer. I'm someone who's really all about usability with my phones, especially now. I have an iPad Pro for those heavier tasks, and I have a Canon R8 mirrorless camera when I want to take photos or videos that I'm really serious about keeping. So, with that in mind, I'm really looking for a phone that just does well with phone tasks, you could say. So, what I mean by that is taking phone calls, scrolling social media, watching YouTube, doing emails, just doing light stuff. So that really matters to me how the phone feels using it for these types of things. So what I mean by that is the phone light? Can the phone be used in one hand? So as you can probably imagine, with that use case in mind, I was very impressed by the iPhone Air. And compared to the 17 Pro, I vastly preferred the Air. The 17, I'm happy to report, is kind of a middle ground, as you can imagine, but it leans much more towards the Air in terms of usability, and it's a lot easier for me to recommend than the 17 Pro. As far as the design goes, I think the 17's design is quite nice. To be clear, I don't think it's a big departure from standard iPhone designs for the past several years, at least in the back anyway. It's really hard to argue these look a lot different than they have since the 13 and 14 and maybe even the 12, but it's not a bad design. And in some ways, if it isn't broken, you don't really need to fix it, you could say. With that said as well, I think it's really quite impressive that this phone is quite a bit thinner than the 17 Pro and also quite a bit lighter. I found the 17 Pro just frankly uncomfortable to use, despite the fact that it has the same screen size as this normal 17. The increased weight and the increased thickness just made it kind of unpleasant to use. Ironically, despite the fact that the Air had a larger screen than the 17 Pro, I actually found it much easier to use in one hand due to that thinner and lighter design. With the 17, it's a similar story. Using the phone in one hand is quite easy, and while it isn't quite as thin or light as the Air, it's a difference that isn't super noticeable, and I think it still makes for a great one-handed phone that you can easily slide in and out of your pocket. I think of that use case that many of us probably have where you're basically laying down, holding your phone in one hand, scrolling, watching YouTube. And on a heavy Pro phone, like my 16 Pro, for example, that I've been daily for the last year, that isn't really a super comfortable experience. The 17 Pro, it's even worse. Here in the 17, it's not an issue. It's a lot closer to the Air, like I said, and makes the phone really quite pleasant to use. As far as the cameras go, we're looking at that same main sensor as what we're getting on the Air. It's a great camera. You probably heard about it in other reviews. When it comes to that wide angle, I'm someone who personally mainly only uses the main sensor on the iPhone, at least when I'm trying to take photos or videos that I plan to keep. But I know everybody's use case is different, so having that wide angle could be useful. I know especially on social media, people tend to take a lot of photos and videos with that wide angle camera, so it's nice to have it here. Not having the telephoto, I personally really don't care less about that, but you got the Pro if that's a big priority for you. With all that said, it's really not a whole lot to say here. This phone is really quite good, but what I want to kind of emphasize is just how I feel this fits into Apple's current lineup. As I've kind of alluded to in previous videos, I think Apple's lineup has changed. I don't think the Pro is a de facto premium iPhone anymore. I really tend to think of that as the Air. The Air is made with titanium. The Air, in my opinion anyway, has the nicest looking design. I think if you want that nicest iPhone, that most premium one, and you're okay with sacrificing a few features, the Air is definitely the way to go. However, if you don't really care about that, but I would consider really cool design and super thin form factor, and you want something really similar in terms of usability, and you want to spend a couple $100 less, that's where the 17 comes in. I think the 17 is an amazing value and also speaks to just how much Apple has seemed to change their approach. We look at products like the M4 Mac Mini, the M4 MacBook Air, and overall, it seems like Apple is actually trying to target value now, something they never really did in the past. So with all that said, where does the 17 Pro fit into this lineup? I think it's really the phone you get if for example, you really care a lot about the battery to a really significant extent, though the Pro Max is probably more there for that, and you really want those extra camera features. Otherwise, I don't recommend it. And just to add to it, the battery here with the 17 I found to be completely fine. It's similar to my 16 Pro. I found it to be a little bit better than the Air, perhaps just a little bit worse than the normal 17 Pro. I'm not a super heavy user, so I never really got this phone below 40% at the end of the day. So your mileage may vary, but I think the battery here is certainly fine. So with all that said, those are my thoughts on the iPhone 17. Stay tuned to Erickson Films. We're going to be reviewing a lot more tech products coming up. But thanks for watching, and until next time.